Are we live?
Yes, we are, and I think we should get this started with. We have quite a few participants on here already. So, hi everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Unveiling IGM Financial's Salesforce DevOps Success with CloudFulcrum's OpsBridge. So, I'd like to introduce you to our speakers for the day first. We have Chandler Ding, who has over 15 years of experience in business transformation. He's the director of digital platform and release management, overseeing digital features like Salesforce on the IGM digital platform. And then we have Vernon Keenan, who is a leading Salesforce evangelist and hi Vernon, and DevOps expert, currently serving as a senior industry analyst at Salesforce DevOps.net. And we have Teja Amiraneni, who is the co-founder of CloudFulcrum, a global firm specialized in Salesforce DevOps, enterprise DevOps, and digital transformation. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chandler Ding to take over.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chandler. It is my pleasure to participate in this webinar to share our experiences in the DevOps journey at IGM Financial. IGM is a Canadian-based wealth and asset management firm, providing a wide range of financial planning and investment management services. My team is part of digital technology, automation, and integration, focusing on continuous delivery of new functions and features for our advisors and clients. Next slide, please. Our digital portfolio leverages Salesforce as our main platform for most of our applications. Two of the critical applications are Advisor Portal and Online Access. We had a number of challenges associated with how our shared components between the two applications were designed, ranging from Apex classes to triggers and custom labels, etc. Most of our pain points were centered around the development, testing, release management overhead resulted from the complex interdependencies between the two applications. Next slide. On the DevOps management side, while we do have established deployment processes, CI/CD toolset, and pipeline setup, we also have our fair share of challenges. For example, our Salesforce application test validation and deployment takes very long. Our deployment processes include manual configuration management steps that can be time-consuming and include repetitive tasks that's prone to error. Our CI/CD pipelines that are set up for Salesforce using Jenkins, they can break with metadata changes in Salesforce upgrades. Next slide. Now, fast forward to last year, we've engaged with CloudFulcrum to focus on two main areas. One is co-modularization for our applications of choice, in this case, using Online Access as our pilot. And the second area was DevOps management enhancement. So on the co-modularization with DX side, what CloudFulcrum was able to work with our team on is they reviewed the shared component between applications. They designed the branching model to support both DX and metadata API deployments, perform dependency analysis, and redeveloped or modularized the shared components to remove the dependencies, as you can see on the screen, between applications that included Apex classes, VF pages, Lightning component, Lightning web component, etc. And lastly, they enabled our teams to be able to deploy the packages more independently of each other. Next slide, thank you. On the DevOps side, we basically worked on this together with CloudFulcrum on the DevOps maturity assessment that included version control, deployments, and environment management. And CloudFulcrum also reviewed our current, at the time, CI/CD pipelines with Jenkins and identified tooling needs. And I think the last I wanted to mention is we worked with CloudFulcrum, implemented the lean and test-driven deployment for one of our applications, online access, leveraging reduced code package size, faster deployment, and targeted test class execution. And here is a picture of our DevOps flow.
It's quite a picture, Chandler.
I know. And this is an updated picture after our engagement with CloudFulcrum. So essentially, this picture shows how our feature branch upon creation goes from development and code review through various staging environments for testing and eventually to production, using various DevOps CI/CD tool sets such as XLR release for orchestration, SonarQube for code scanning, Jenkins for deployment, etc. And from QA, UAT site is more for regression and pre-prod. The deployment of the changes to go through these staging environment were all enhanced using the Lean and Delta deployment toolset from CloudFulcrum. And with that, I turn it over to Vernon.
Hey, Chandler, before I dig in, why don't you expand a bit on the whole Apex problems that you had, and how the testing a little bit, because I'll talk about that in my part, but I think I'd like to.
Yeah,
you had a lot of problems with that, right? In your
so basically, we used to basically every time when we make a change, say a single line of a code change in online access, that would require us to build and deploy the entire code package for online access, every single component. And for anyone familiar with Salesforce, that would mean that the entire set of your Apex test classes are going to get executed, and that can take quite some time. And I would give you a little bit of a context. Our online access application isn't huge. Our advisor portal application for advisors is a lot more complicated. So online access itself, to complete validation, the component plus the Apex test class validation, and then deployment takes over 4 hours. And that's one of our main pain point at that point.
Nice. And then we're going to get into how they have a kind of a graph analyzer where you can just selectively do that, do the tests based on your current changes, your user stories, and what's going on in your planning, right? Yes. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I
yeah, please continue.
sorry, I quickly wanted to add what Chandler was saying. So when we started with IGM Financials, all of their online access and advisor portal were kind of co-sharing a lot of Apex classes and triggers. So effectively, what we were able to do is look at which particular line of code is associated to online access versus what is associated to advisor portal. And then we started modularizing all the bits and pieces of code. So we created this invisible line of separation, if you can call it. So if there is a single Apex class that is executing some parameter and the same, let's take a test class, right? For example, a test data factory. Everybody is going to use a single factory class. So every time the online access team needs to change, the advisor portal also got affected because of it. So we started splitting those classes into separate packages or separate classes altogether, thereby taking into consideration the order of execution and everything. We were able to completely create a invisible line between these two applications so that online access as a business unit has no dependency with advisor portal, whereas advisor portal as a business unit doesn't have any dependency. There are a few configuration items which can't be modularized, for example, account object or some of these objects that cannot be modularized. That's what we left them as something that is shared between two applications. This is one of problem statement that every customer of Salesforce.com has, where they have like 5 or 6 different applications on Salesforce, and anytime you change a single thing, you are now having to regression test every application that you have on Salesforce. So it became a little complicated. So the way we were able to do is use metadata API, use the dependency API, look at each and every component, how are they listed. We created a entire section of new technology piece which can graph your entire application. So that's how we were able to find out how are they interconnected, which lines of code did actually make sense. We had to dig a little bit deep into their functional aspects also, but that's the requirement at the end of the day. You need to know the functionality in order to change technical part of the house also.
Yeah, I think what we got out of this exercise was, I would consider our shared component become more rationalized, right? So it's basically, it makes sense. So if you share a component between advisor portal and online access, they really meant to be shared, instead of in the past that there might be some design flaws that I'm glad that we were able to address.
This whole discussion makes me realize that what you've done is kind of applied good software engineering, but kind of with a balance for the requirements of Salesforce. And this, and how you deploy a SaaS platform is always tricky because you have so many dependencies like that. And so before I launch into this, could you tell me a little bit about how OpsBridge how CloudFulcrum, like, for example, did this job, but you had a ton of experience behind you, and OpsBridge didn't like come off of a whiteboard, right? It was something that you guys created over time.
Yeah, well, so IGM, I wouldn't consider us as one of the advanced adopters of DevOps. Or financial industry, that we wouldn't call ourselves as a technology company in the financial industry yet, like many other banks do. And we went through this journey thinking very simple questions like, how do we become more efficient? How do we provide our business the capability regardless whether they want to be able to change more frequently or not, most partners want to be able to change more frequently on demand. And we were in a situation where we're unable to, where if everything goes even smoothly, that there's a set period of time that we need to go through, just do the simple math, and then we wouldn't be able to say turn something to production in a day, for example. So that's the incentive, and we're looking into the industry, and we went through a vendor selection process, and CloudFulcrum did come through. For me, there are many good things we all can say about the engagement, but I think at that time we don't know each other very well, and basically their proposal that came through us compared to the others are the most comprehensive, and demonstrated that in a very short period of time, where they were given the same opportunity to learn our environment, right? It's just me and my technical team shared, okay, this is our problem statements, this is what it looks like. So given the same amount of information in the same amount of time, and they came back with a most concrete set of proposals to do X, Y, Z. And I would say that it wasn't too different from eventually what we ended up doing and able to complete. So
you went
I
to
think
battle and the plan stayed intact?
Sorry?
You went to battle and the plan stayed intact?
So this is how we started that engagement. Obviously there's turns during the process, to get to know a new vendor, to get to know our new environment, but I think the overall engagement was quite pleasant, and at the end of the day, and I think we have some later slides to show that the benefits and savings that we were able to accomplish in a matter of, I think the engagement is about 6 months or so. Yeah.
Good. Okay, well, I'll launch. Thank you for the impromptu interview there to illuminate our audience. But I think I'll go into my speech now. I think about OpsBridge. Basically, I had the chance to get introduced to CloudFulcrum and OpsBridge, and it's something I've always been excited about, is to figure out exactly how people deploy DevOps and how they find vendors to do that for them. And essentially, it's the channel that I'm interested in here, because I think it's so important with bigger companies. You make a decision, you're kind of faced with this decision. Do I, hire, I won't name them, but you can guess who I'm talking about, the big global system integrators, to kind of come in and do the work and figure out what's going on, and I trust them? Or do I hire other consultants who maybe are good Salesforce consultants, but maybe they haven't done a ton of DevOps yet or something? Or because I've always been looking for the channel specialist who's been doing this over and over again with different ways of doing it, with Jenkins or with Capado or with different ways of implementing DevOps. And the reason why I was attracted and wanted to tell the story about CloudFulcrum OpsBridge is because after, I guess it's hundreds of deployments that they've done using this architecture here, which I'll go into in a sec, they've kind of refined it into almost a software package you can buy, but it's more like a template or an accelerator that they use. And I think, Chandler, you saw that when they came back with a comprehensive proposal to kind of up your DevOps game, and it was a good plan, and the plan stuck, and you were able to execute it. So I think the thing that is remarkable about this architecture is that in the middle there, you've got this OpsBridge, and it functions as kind of like an application lifecycle management super glue to some degree. And this is, I think what I'm talking about here also is some of the future directions of OpsBridge. So Chandler can't say that he's used all of the things I'm talking about now. But I think this is the vision, and I like it because essentially, if you have stuff going on in Jira and you need to deploy it in Jenkins or GitHub Actions, OpsBridge forms a translation between that. It creates a kind of like a bus, an operating bus, where you can send information, and they also plug in their additional features, such as their story tracker and this accelerator we're going to talk about. And we just got way into the test intelligence and the dynamic Apex testing and the Delta deployments and all these features. I got a nice sunspot on my face there. All those features are integrated together in OpsBridge. And so it definitely is. It's designed to optimize end-to-end management delivery for complex Salesforce environments. It unifies application lifecycle management, provides intelligent orchestration and actionable analytics. And with these extensive capabilities tailored for Salesforce application lifecycle management, CI/CD orchestration, visibility, and compliance, OpsBridge becomes the command center for coordinating and enhancing end-to-end development workflows, release management, and operational insights across complex Salesforce environments. By the way, I'm quoting from an article I wrote on this on my website, salesforcedevops.net, and it's right there on the front page. It's easy to find. Next slide, please. So I was just describing this architecturally when we had the picture back there. I want to dig into this, that this is I think we really need this application lifecycle management super glue in the Salesforce DevOps ecosystem. It's really kind of the next step where we need to go. Most people consider Salesforce DevOps to be release management strictly. And it's got to be more than that. And the first step is to integrate it into your workflow using tools that everybody knows how to use, such as Jira, and then to integrate it with your existing infrastructure, especially if you're in a corporate environment like Chandler, where you're kind of stuck with Jenkins, or you're a more modern environment and you're deploying in Azure DevOps. It needs to integrate all that stuff together. And OpsBridge tackles these problems by serving as, like I said, an ALM superglue, integrating disparate tools into a single source of truth for end-to-end visibility and traceability. With real-time synchronization between platforms like Jira, Jenkins, Azure DevOps, and Salesforce, teams maintain cohesion regardless of which systems they use. Shared workflows, automated handoffs, contextual notifications keep everyone on the same page. So just a little bit more on that slide. And then, so the thing we get here is we get bidirectional syncing. We get real-time story tracking across management systems. You get collaborative workflows for requirements, defects, and tasks, contextual notifications and reminders across teams, and traceability across linked work items. So tons of functional features with this. Next slide, please. So again, by infusing OpsBridge with all of this operational knowledge about what you're actually doing in your deployments, and by also integrating the sophisticated, I call it, it's a form of change intelligence, is what I believe that CloudFulcrum has implemented here, is that they can detect changes in your Apex library, for example, and then do the Delta deployments and the lean deployments that they were talking about, which is essentially a form of change intelligence where you're able to narrow down exactly what you're sending to the system and your change artifacts to the minimum. So, I mean, that's a big deal, especially in Salesforce. We talked about that extensively about a little bit ago. So I think this definitely reinforces it, is you need technology to do this. It's definitely not something you can do in your head. It's not something you could ask a developer to do. It's definitely something that has to be done with technology, with graph databases and things of that nature. So I think, you really get a de-risking. And, if you're thinking about your Salesforce investment, if you're spending millions of dollars on Salesforce, if you're spending even 400 or 500 on Salesforce, you need to manage the risks of running that kind of platform. And I think this Delta deployments and change intelligence is definitely one of the things that addresses the risk of running the platform. So, and then the other thing that gets integrated into the platform is is analytics. So we also have comprehensive analytics and visibility. It's observability is an oft forgotten thing in Salesforce DevOps. So I think another advantage to having this kind of ALM superglue is you're able to integrate in messages from exceptions and other issues that are happening in your DevOps chain, and so that enhances your deployment. Now the next slide, I think kind of talked about it again, but I think it's worth reiterating how change intelligence in a DevOps platform is really a critical feature. If you don't have that, you're going to be rerunning your tests all the time. We're not seeing it here, but another feature that gives you is what I call a blast radius. So if you make a change into that's another way to think about this, is that if you're changing something in your org, there's a blast radius of effect, like of things that can go wrong based on making that change, and you have to do tests and so forth to identify that. So I think, again, it's a paramount concern amongst Salesforce release managers and folks to optimize the time. And with an ALM superglue, with the integrated capabilities of OpsBridge, and I think also kind of backed up with the experience, how this is an organic product that's been built on doing it over hundreds of customers. So to me, it should help you if you feel like how Chandler was saying that he wasn't a great, he wasn't at the DevOps gold star level. I hope I'm not insulting you there, but this helped you get to maybe to the silver star level, from a bronze or something. And I think that you need experience in the channel to help you do that. So that's why I like CloudFulcrum OpsBridge. So there we go.
Thank you, Chandler and Vernon. So I would like to, for the next 10-15 minutes, I would like to walk you guys through how does this OpsBridge work, and what are the accelerators that are working in order to do the Delta, Lean, and automated test execution and all that kind of stuff. So let me try to share my screen. Sorry, I'm gonna jump between multiple screens in this time because we are looking all the way. I want to start the journey at SDLC level, where you start your where a feature is added to your Jira board or to your ALM board, and how does it translate into every part of your agile or your development journey, and so forth and so on. So I am in a simple Jira project. So I have a project, and there's a demo project that is there. So I'm creating a simple task. I'm gonna say it webinar demo, and so I'm gonna add hello world. webinar demo, something, so forth and so on. So I'm going to add it to a fixed release version, whichever release you are trying to go through, or which release this particular story is going to be associated to. I'm going to add a fixed release version, and I'm going to add it to an sprint, whichever sprint that is associated to it. Or if the sprint is not there also, it's fine. The minute you add a sprint, this goes back to the OpsBridge system and everything. So I'm creating a user story or an issue. So if you look at it, DEM38, this particular issue is just created, and we have it here, webinar demo. So a minute story is created on the Jira for the active sprints, that particular data is sent back to our OpsBridge tracker over here. So if you see, I don't have DEM38 as of this second. So the minute I refresh, if you see, there is a real-time integration that is sending the data from Jira or your Azure DevOps or any of the ALM systems that you have, a real-time data is sent. So if I open this, it says DEM38, the title of it, is it a task, is it a story, which releases is associated to it, what is the Jira key, what is the sprint number and everything. So the minute this comes here, so I can associate it with, I'm gonna say it's associated to, I'm gonna do my development in dev1, and I want this to be associated to a pipeline. And yeah, and I'm gonna save the record. So the minute I save the record, I'm letting the system know that, hey, this is where I'm going to use. I'm gonna use my dev environment, my SIT environment, my UAT environment, my production, how is it released and everything. So then I'm gonna go back to my development org. So my development org is CRM CF dev. And then I am going to modify this particular test class. I'm going to put a simple comment over here for now. Webinar demo test line. So I updated a very simple test class. And at the same point of time, I'm updating its associated class also, webinar demo line, and save. So the minute it is saved, it's now in my environment. I go through my testing cycles. I see if it's functionally working or not, all the good things about from a unit testing perspective. And then once I'm done with my unit testing, as a developer, I need to commit this code. So I'll go back to my VS Code, where Salesforce has all the plugins that is required. I will fetch the code. Sorry, I will fetch the code that was just modified. I can use VS Code for development, or right now I'm just using it as a mechanism to commit. But as a developer, you can use VS Code for your development and then deploy the code, test it, and then use it for the commit procedure also. So it's trying to fetch the code. Give it a minute.
Live demos.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. From today in the morning, I'm seeing a lot of time to run the extension, CLI extension.
So whenever you need it, it doesn't work. That's the rule.
Free from the source. Let me try it one more time.
See, we have a question. How do you track the pre-plus deployments in Jira ALM? Can anybody illuminate on that question?
Yeah, so I am going to walk you through that. I'm not sure who asked the question, but in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the pre and post deployment steps. So let's say in the meantime, I'm going to go back to my story over here as it tries to pull it up. So I have related list where I have manual activities. So if for this particular story, if there is a manual activity, tell the system whether it's a pre-deployment step, is it Salesforce, velocity related, or is it a data load, all that kind of stuff, and just say deactivate the flow XYZ. I'm just making the example over here, but you can have pre and post deployment steps that are added to the story level. So there can be a post deployment step saying reactivate flows. So the minute I save it associated to this particular story, when the story needs to be actually deployed, I will show it in the next minute or so. It gets automatically attached to that. So for the sake of demo, I'm gonna do this. I'm not sure why it's not working. Webinar demo. There's my test class. Not sure why the CLI of Salesforce is not working today. Anyways, so I saved both the classes to my local. Now I'm gonna commit this code to my version control branch, whichever. So if you want to use a feature branch model, you can go the feature branch model. If you want to be more into release oriented branching structure, you will have release branching structure. So right now I'm committing this particular code to my dev1 branch, whichever branch is my development branch. I am committing the code to that particular development branch. Demo webinar. That's it. As a developer, I am done and dusted at this point of time, and I'm pushing this code to my version control system. So as a developer, I have done my development. I have committed my development to the version control system. So this is when OpsBridge will take over, and then as a developer, I'm updating the status to committed. And then I'm updating the status to merge and deploy to SIT. So if you look at it, the minute we change the status to merge and deploy to SIT, the DevOps team, whoever is there, they are going to get an email saying that, hey, this particular developer wants to deploy this piece of code to SIT environment. And at the same point of time, it automatically starts the deployment process also. So merge process also. If you see, there's a merge process that gets initiated automatically. Now, this merge process goes back to if I go back to Jenkins, there are separate jobs for deployment, merging, everything. So these jobs are automatically initiated once you click on the button of saying that, hey, push my story to the next environment. These merge jobs these merge jobs gets initiated automatically. So if I look my dev1 to dev2, so if you look at it, August 11:41 p.m., there's one commit which got merged, which is exactly that particular commit. So it looks for changes that were done in the dev branch, and it automatically merges the story for you. So nobody needs to go manually and try to figure out everything. So once the merge job, we keep polling Jenkins for every 15-20 seconds. So if you see, the minute it's completed, it updates the status back onto completed. So this is when the DevOps engineer will see, hey, this particular story has a pre-deployment step. I need to execute the pre-deployment step in order to start the deployment. So I'm gonna look at the pre-deployment step, say that, okay, I have done the pre-deployment step and completed. I'm updating the status. Now it goes to the deployment module, or this deployment step will get initiated. So over in the deployment step, You need not go rewrite your package XML, go back and build your build files. None of that is required. It will automatically initiate, or it will automatically create a deployment package, which is exactly the changes associated to the story DEM38 that we are deploying. So I'll come back here. I'll click on deploy. Then a call is sent back to Jenkins, where if you look at it, the deployment to sit, this particular job gets initiated. It takes a couple of seconds to initiate the job. So if you see 11:44, still doing its thing. See 11:44, it figured out that there is one commit that got merged to SIT branch, and it will start deploying. So if I go into this particular job, and if I want to start seeing, hey, which commit is getting added, or I want to see what are the files that got changed. So the accelerators that we have built on Jenkins or your Bamboo or your GitHub Actions or Circle CI or any of this, they have lean and delta mechanism. Lean mechanism is, hey, I just want to deploy, if I have a object file, there might be 500 fields in your object file. You need not redeploy all the 500 fields. So the lean mechanism is going to see what are the 3 fields that actually changed, and it's only going to deploy those 3 fields. The delta mechanism is, hey, there are 1,000 files in my entire version control system. Out of this 1,000 files, let me just deploy these 2 files, because those are the only 2 files that got deployed. So it changes it shows you what exactly are the changes associated to this particular build. And then if you look at it, it starts deploying this piece of code to the destination environment also. So if you see, the deployment was also done in 51 seconds. When it deploys this, I'm going to go to the destination environment. Now, this is my destination. QA is my destination environment. So if I see the deployment status, and here, 8:45 a.m. This is in PDT, but effectively. So if you see, it deployed 2 components, my Apex class and its associated test class, and it only ran the test classes associated to it. Nowhere in the entire system you need to, the test intelligence is this, where we understand, we figure out, hey, what are the classes that are getting deployed, and we start building an automated test execution parameter, and we let Salesforce, as a part of the deployment call, the accelerators that are built on Jenkins or your enterprise DevOps platforms will tell Salesforce that, okay, do not execute all the test classes, just execute these 5 things or these 10 things. On the back end of this, we maintain a change mechanism or a change intelligence mechanism where it understands what are the changes and what are the test classes associated to it. There's a little bit of algorithm that we have written on the back end, which will help build it and deploy it to the destination environments. So as a user, as a particular or as a developer, now I will see that, see, the minute the deployment is updated or completed, it immediately Jenkins sends back a call to Salesforce, letting the system know that, hey, this particular story deployment is done. Now I have a post-deployment step. I need to execute the post-deployment step. Let's say I executed it for the sake of this conversation and save. The minute I save it, a chatter post gets updated to the developer saying that, hey, this particular activity is done. So rather than a DevOps engineer going back to a developer and saying that, hey, your deployment is done, go ahead and check your story, we try to reduce the communication as much as possible by introducing an automated mechanism using chatter, which is Salesforce way of communicating between the teams. And this process can keep going any number of times. So if I want to deploy this story, I'll hit on merge and deploy to UAT. If I want to deploy this story to production, I'll hit merge and deploy to production. So this can be repeated any number of times for this particular story, and the code gets deployed. Based upon, we have something called as release paths. So you can define your own release path. You can say that, hey, I want the code from dev 1, dev 2, dev 3 to go to SIT, and then UAT, and then production. So these are predefined release paths that you can create to say how the story needs to be migrated, from which environment to which environment the story needs to be migrated. So that will give you an understanding of where your story is also at any point of time. So this is, in a nutshell, in a 15-minute, 20-minute nutshell, what the CloudFulcrum OpsBridge and as well as the accelerators that we have built work, and how they do the deployment in a seamless fashion way. I see there are a bunch of questions. I can start. The first question was, will OpsBridge support any additional integrations? Yes, based upon the requirements, since this is primarily built on Salesforce and we are using a lot of open APIs, yes, this will support any additional integrations that you would need. So let's say you have a homegrown CI/CD enterprise tool and you want to integrate it with that, it's absolutely possible. Most of the configurations are plug and play mechanism on the OpsBridge level. So you have your Jenkins jobs, which are over here. You are naming the job. It's pretty straightforward in terms of it. Rohit Gagan. How does the test classes are fetching dynamically? Say my delta changes have pages, controllers. How does it fetch to the delta only? So Rohit, on the back end of this entire system, we maintain a DB which is going to which keeps updating based upon the test execution tables that Salesforce has already built. So we look at the test execution table, we map, okay, this particular Apex class, this particular trigger is associated to this particular test class. So we look at that DB, and that DB is used as a reference point for us to drive all the test execution or dynamically build the test classes. And that is part of the accelerator that is put on Jenkins only. It has nothing, you need not do anything specific to call out, hey, I want to run this particular Apex test class, and so forth and so on. Can we customize OpsBridge as per our needs? Yes. Since this is based upon your SDLC processes, based on your approval processes, the OpsBridge can be configured based upon your needs. So let's say, hey, I don't want my pipeline to be in this way. Hey, I want my story to go in this particular direction or in this particular way. It is a Salesforce application. You can always customize on top of it. And the client or the customer would have the flexibility to kind of build on top of OpsBridge to your SDLC needs. How do you handle the conflicts while merging? Good question. So if there is ever a conflict, it will show us on the Jira level itself. So in the backend, all it's doing is it's kind of raising a pull request, where if there is ever a conflict on the pull request level, it will automatically show that the conflict it's conflicting. So rather than on the task status, rather than the merge completed, it will lead it to in progress state, and it will be, you will get an email from Bitbucket saying that, hey, this particular pull request that you raised has conflict. So I wish I can show you my email where it's sending her tens of emails saying that the pull request was raised and it was merged and all that kind of stuff. So you will have the flexibility to merge the conflicts on your VS Code or on the github.com or on the Bitbucket level directly. Sorry, I'm just trying to go one after the other. Does this app maintains any of the data on CF servers? No. This app is completely hosted on your tools only. So the application is hosted on salesforce.com, the client's particular salesforce.com. The accelerators are hosted or they are added to your existing enterprise DevOps tools only, so that no data is actually coming out of your enterprise applications or your network. So the data is always inside your network. There is no problem from a data perspective. Either it's on salesforce.com or on your Bitbucket or on your Jenkins servers, Jenkins, GitHub Actions, one of those servers. Okay. Last question. If the test class or trigger or any component is net new, how will it handle differences on the table if they are not updated? Yeah, so Rohit, we keep polling the source environment. So when I run the test class, let's say I have written a new test class and I have written a new Apex class. Then before you commit, you're going to execute the test class to see what percentage of code is already covered. So the minute that particular table on the source environment is updated, we are updating the database right before the deployment. Since we know what is the source environment for this, we are updating the table on the source environment on the accelerator at the same point of time. We keep polling when the prepare and build process is running this 14 and 2 seconds. We are requesting the source environment associated table. So if there is any change to that particular table, we are capturing. There is, we are using change capture concept and we are capturing. Is rollback supported? Is it on the org level? All changes will be rollbacked on the Git branches as well. Right now, we don't have rollback supported yet on this application. We are hoping to get, we are building that as we speak. I'm hoping by the end of this quarter or by early next quarter, we will have the rollback mechanism also enabled on this system. But again, it's rollback is a good feature to have, but my experience or everybody in the Salesforce world is always about look forward. So you effectively never roll back your applications. It's always that, hey, let's just fix the bug and keep moving forward. And there are very less use cases where you will actually roll back. But yes, rollback is a feature that we are working on to figure out how that can be done. How do you manage your sandboxes? How often do you refresh SIT, UAT? How do you configure them after refresh? Leonard, refresh cycles are very organization specific. Once the refresh is done, you will configure your sandboxes on the Jenkins platform only. You need not configure them on anywhere else. So you will, on this pipeline level only, you have your own configuration items. So where you can configure what is the source, what is the destination, username and password. If you don't want to go towards the username and password mechanism, and if you want to use auth tokens or JWT tokens or any of that, that also are supported as of this moment. They are not, the username and passwords are not on your Salesforce. We don't want any of your username and passwords on this particular platform. I think that's all the questions there are right now. Guys, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Feel free to send the questions that you have. And yeah, with that being said, let's keep moving on with the rest of the webinar. All right. Tanya, you mind going back?
I think it's time to say goodbye.
I think we have one more slide.
Oh, we have one more slide. Yes.
Yeah, one last one.
The
most
money
important.
slide. We call this the money slide.
Yeah.
Money shot.
So Chandler, please explain your, walk us through what we have done and what we were able to achieve.
Yeah, so well, thanks for the demo. I think it looks you guys made some progress. Continuous improvement. That's great. So this is a simple slide that I kind of alluded to earlier in this webinar. It really reflects the end result of our engagement with CloudFulcrum and the benefit that our application has achieved. So basically, it highlights the saving that we now have using Lean and Delta deployments for our online access application. On average, the saving that in time for deployment that includes validation and Apex test validation as well. It's about 9 times less than previously. So in our total time, about 4 hours per deployment now can be shrink down to like less than 30 minutes. It's pretty remarkable in my opinion. And as long as for your validation to work in a Lean and Delta fashion, you just need to make sure that all of your components hits the Apex test coverage of the required 75% or more. And in that, then the tool it works beautifully, and our team's benefiting from it. Any questions? Any more questions? If not, I turn it back to CloudFulcrum.
All right, thank you, Chandler. Guys, we are at Dreamforce. We will be at Dreamforce. If you guys have any questions or if you would like to have a quick conversation around this, we are happy to meet you guys at Dreamforce. Feel free to send out any questions or concerns or emails to sales@CloudFulcrum. And looking forward to meeting some of you guys over there.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.